live. Welcome to Eden Town Hall number 73. We're here for an Eden Fractal community event. I have the pleasure to be here with good friends Tadas and Zaal, and we have some exciting topics on the agenda today. Zaal is sharing that he was just in Boulder and updating the Fractal bot. Very nice. I'm going to give a little overview of the topics on the agenda today and welcome presentation, and then we're going to jump into discussions. So as I mentioned here, we're gathered on Thursday, February 19th for our 72nd Eden Town Hall, 73rd actually. And we have been doing it lately where we have, for anyone who's been following over the past weeks, we've been playing a Respect game every other week and doing just Town Hall discussions every other week. And so this week is just a Town Hall week, and we're not going to be playing an Eden Fractal Respect game, so we can have some more time for deeper discussions. And last week we played a Synchronous Respect Trees game where there was 6 topics proposed. One of them was kind of duplicate. They're about updating ORDAO configuration, more equal animals 5-year anniversary, Eden Fractal 2026 resolutions, Fractalgram development, and SRT, aka Synchronous Respect Tree V1, and other improvements to this Synchronous Respect Trees game where we choose topics and also make contribution requests, as we've been doing for the past couple of months now. You can see in this tweet from Eden creators, there's links to the snapshot polls where people propose topics and propose contribution requests and more details. We encourage everyone to join the upcoming events every Thursday at 16 UTC. For anyone who's not familiar, EdenFractal.com is where you can learn more about our community, which is dedicated to optimizing collective decision making through collaborative research, development, education, gamification, and community engagement. And EdenTownHall.com is where we can learn more about this forum, and we post videos about how we're exploring the future of collaborative decision making and fractal governance alongside the Eden Fractal community. There have been some new videos published on the Eden Creators YouTube video channel, and so we discussed the Synchronous Respect Trees during the last town hall mostly, and we also discussed the Maritime Alliance anniversary. We discussed some of these topics already to some extent. And also we published some videos about Fractalgram design principles from a recent town hall and introduction to fractal circles over the past couple weeks. So I encourage people to check this out. This has been some really great development and great contributions as always in the Eden Fractal Respect games too. And like and subscribe on the Eden Creators YouTube channel if you haven't already, and find these videos on the websites too. You can scroll through and find show notes and everything. So the events calendar, as I said, we'll have Eden Fractal next week. But anyway, we'll get into the agenda for today. So I kind of introduced it already, but there's a snapshot poll here where there's more details about each of these topics that Tadas put up about updating the ORDAO configuration, which we don't have delegates and we're not able to approve this proposal today because this isn't a week that we're making decisions with the legislative process. So I suppose probably won't talk about that. We've already talked about that recently, and that's just a quick proposal we'll approve soon, probably next week. And then the other topics on the agenda, you can see the one with the second most votes. Oops, I have the wrong one open actually. I need to go to the newest topics period. So the one with the most votes is update ORDAO configuration, and the next one is more equal animals anniversary, which we already covered to some extent in the last week, and SRT V1 improvements, which we went into quite deeply last week, and then after that, Eden Fractal 2026 resolutions and Fractalgram. This is kind of just here to guide us for our discussion. There's more details about all this, which people can find in the Eden Fractal Telegram group, t.me/EdenFractal. And I want to just also give a quick update. The actual anniversary of More Equal Animals was on February 21st, so that's actually in 2 days from now. So we're getting 2 days away from the anniversary, so that's nice. And big shout out and thanks to everybody who's contributed to fractal governance over the past 5 years. But anyway, Tadas, Zaal, welcome. Eric, thanks for joining. We can jump into any of these topics, continue our discussions about SRT V1 improvements like we're discussing. If anybody has any comments on ORDAO, more equal animals, or any of these other topics on mine, then feel free to share. I know Zaal also said he had some updates about the Zao Fractal bot, so we can just have an open discussion as well. Is there anything that you guys would like to discuss in particular? Or how would you like to best proceed? If it's helpful, I can also share some quick updates that this last episode about SRT V1 improvements inspired me very much. I have a habit lately where I after the event on Thursday, then I get very inspired and then I record long audio notes. And so I have some audio notes and updates I could share about some new thoughts about Synchronous Respect Trees that we did in this episode. I don't know, like they're still kind of draft and like just getting ready to share maybe, but I'd be happy to follow up on that discussion and share some of my thoughts if that would be useful to do. And thanks guys for the discussion, especially to Das for sharing this Respect Trees game. I think it's very interesting and exciting.
I would be interested to hear both Zal's updates if he's available to present them, as well as yours.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, Zaal, if you're available, we'd love to hear your updates. Also, Eric, I know you've been working on a lot of stuff with the both the app that you're developing and the program that you did to test the app, and I think that you're planning to soon, if you haven't already, started to work with the nonprofit program. So, would be curious to hear your updates too. This is kind of just open discussion, so feel free to just unmute if anyone wants to share any updates, and I'm happy to share my updates later as well.
Sure. The biggest thing for me is actually getting clarity with trying to explain this stuff. I mean, we know it pretty good, but it's really hard to get something people know. So I've done a few things. One is I went to a group last and had a bunch of people beat me up over it. So we sat down and just said, explain. And then the way it worked is we took turns doing our project, and then everybody had notes and they asked questions, gave you feedback, but they also wrote down notes. And at the end, after you talked, everybody got your notes. The other thing I did was there's a tool my friend makes called Crew, which you can see if you go into a GPT, and you can add Crew method. And at any time, you can ask a crew review, and it'll take whatever you're doing, and it'll break up different AIs that think differently, and then they will analyze whatever you're talking about, give pros, but they look at it from different perspective, like depending what you're doing. Like I was saying, I'm trying to explain this to a group of people, so they made a sample group of people, like people that are wary of gamification, and then they review what you're doing and give you recommendations. So I've been basically had a group of people beat me up, and then I had a bunch of AIs beat, beat me up. And then I went to a networking that night and tried it out. And it actually seemed to work better after getting beat up in the initial networking pitch. And then I had it build me what I call a networking ladder. Here's the throw out the conversation. If they bite and go to the next conversation, then what's the next level down? If they go, what's the next level down? So I not only thought just about that, but how I dig down and get them in. So that's been that. The other thing is I've continued to have test sessions, got tons of feedback. I put it, I think I put all but one in the app. Hopefully I can do that today. I might test it again tomorrow, but next week I start kickoff sessions. So we're actually onboarding the volunteers, getting them together to say that. So I've got my first kickoff session on Tuesday next week with actual volunteers that are going to do this.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. That's exciting news, and hope they didn't beat you up too bad, Eric. Want to make sure that you're safe and healthy and so forth. Yeah.
They did.
By beat up, you mean like they basically said like that doesn't make sense and stuff? Like,
yeah, I don't get it, or what do you
yeah.
mean by that, or well, how do you do this? Well, I don't get where this is going, and
Uh huh.
so I let them dig down to say, how do I get this to a group of people that are kind of new? I'm not worried. Like when I did the presentations a few months back, where I actually got up and had an actual physical presentation that logically presented it in about 15 minutes. I still had lots of questions, but people were just raving. So the problem is I learned to talk about it in 15 minutes. The question is, how do you talk about it in 3 minutes?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's what I got beat up on, is how to talk about it in 3 minutes without the presentation. And one guy was saying, well, I missed your presentation. I heard it was really good, but I shouldn't need a presentation to know what you're talking about, and I just don't get it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. but then afterwards, you said the networking event following that, then you had taken some of the learnings, and so you're maybe like a bit of like a Rocky Balboa, where you learned some lessons. Okay.
But this was a morning networking thing, and then we have this group where you show up when you're working on writing something like this, and you talk to everybody about what you're writing. Then you just sit at a big table together and you work on it. And when you're done, then you talk about how you went and ask questions, and you can have people look at it. So I did that. And then I took the result of that and I went to another networking event and I tried out the new small version, and I got, I want it. I want in. Tell me more. This sounds cool.
Mm-hmm. All right, nice. Well, thanks for the updates. I'm glad that you're learning, and it's important to refine the idea, like I guess like sharpening a stone or something. I see Zaal had written he loves to hear it. That's part of the challenge he has as a host sometimes for sure, and sounds awesome. And yeah, I remember when I went to Denver last year, I had similar learnings over the past couple of years actually when I went to crypto conferences, which were more like, I guess people were more open to these kinds of ideas. I started out being not very good at explaining it and had to like over dozens and dozens of conversations, got better at like figuring out what to say and stuff, and it's still an ongoing process, but that's definitely an important part of the education process and the process, and I like the idea of the tree. I see Tadas has or the ladder, you said that you have that bridge of questions and comments. I see Tadas has his question, his hand up, so Tadas, you want to comment?
Yeah, I think that's something that we all get into, especially the ones who are participating in fractals more. Like, people ask me all the time, like, what are you doing for your job and stuff? And it's always very hard to explain it. And depending on where the person is coming from, his background, that you always have to adapt to that as well. So I think it would be useful for all of us to hear your 3-minute pitch, Eric, eventually.
Well, this is less than that. This was just networking. So I just would say I'm testing a simple 8-week system that helps nonprofit turn volunteer appreciation into measurable growth. And people go, volunteers equal growth? Well, how do you do that? And so I just a huge percent said, I want to know more than I normally would get before by trying to put more information on that. So, but the other thing you can do is you can practice this stuff. Like I use ChatGPT, has voice mode when you're in the car, and you could pretend to pitch to different people. It'll critique your pitches. Yeah, but you can say, I want you to set up a bunch of different people to pitch to. But here's the situation. You can talk. Here's the situation. I want to come up with a bunch of different people to pitch to, and it'll segment your. Like you could say, I'm a highly technical person. I'm really into blockchain, or somebody. You can kind of frame that. Mm-hmm. But so I found it helpful to get practice, but it doesn't substitute practicing to real people. But it's good practice so that when you go to the real people, it's better. But, when it analyzes stuff, it goes, well, here's what this is this person. Here's what they care about. And your thing it'll check that. You address this fear or this concern or that. This sounds too strongly worded. This sounds weak. It's a pretty intense method. And by the way, I ran a performance marketing agency. I've done marketing for so many. It's pretty easy for me to look at people and put that curse of knowledge hat on and just kind of analyze for other people. It sucks as doing it myself, and I worked real hard to get that same mode, but it's just so hard to do that yourself.
But would you say that you need a separate, different pitch for different people? Absolutely. Yeah. Like
when I helped start the Maritime Alliance, it was government, industry, and academia. And government was, how'd you like to get credit for creating new jobs? Oh yeah, I'd love that. Building the economy, creating new jobs. in some measurable ways. How'd you like to get credit, and how'd you like us to help tell the story of how you're working on it? It's like, oh yeah, interviews, no problem. But academic was like, how'd you get more money for research and be able to create classes that fill up that you can teach? So like, yeah, I'm in. Businesses, how'd you like to do partnerships and expand your business globally and find new partners to work on bringing contracts up to $1 million? So like, yeah, I'm in, but it's the same back end. And we developed, when we launched the first tech company, same thing. It was the same back end. It was a cross computing platform that makes smart things. But when you depend on who we were talking to, so in other words, the tool was the same, the transformation is the same, the impact is different. It's like, well, why would I want that? The tool, fractal governance, the way fractal governance transforms are exactly the same. Why they care about it, different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. A couple things. So one, I think that's a great idea that I hadn't thought of yet, Eric, about using ChatGPT to voice mode to train your pitching. And I see that made me think of like I think that latter concept that you shared that's common in businesses. I think like I've heard of different businesses, like especially sales oriented businesses, like for somebody who's like selling a car, I think they have like this kind of ladder thing that if somebody says like, oh, the car's too much money, then they say this, and then if they say, and I think you've told us about this to some extent, but I've never exactly worked in this kind of field with that kind of ladder, but I've heard it as a popular practice, and it makes me think that like maybe that'd be useful for us to like at some point share that kind of ladder, like as we're talking about in like markdown documents and stuff like that, not just in markdown documents for how to play the game, but also in terms of like dealing with objections to fractal governance and dealing with like if people say yes to this, then what else do you say, like to help kind of like train like a fractal force in a way of like people who are like advocating for fractals and help give people the tools that they need to, not just Eric. I mean, Eric is doing a great job, pioneering this method, but also when we get to the point where say there's another 5 people or 10 people or 100 people or whatever who are interested in advocating for fractal governance or fractals or whatever kind of angle they're taking to communicate to whichever audience, they have kind of like these tools and to do so. And we could probably, like, I guess, use ChatGPT or maybe further refine some AI tools that have really good voice modes for that are specifically meant to help people train to get better at advancing fractals and fractal decision-making processes in different organizations. So I think that's something that is very interesting to explore in the future. And then that'd be kind of like taking it out of our own minds, our own silos, and like allowing everybody to benefit from these, I think would be cool. So on the chat, Zaal said that he'd love to hop on a call sometime, Eric, to talk one-on-one or anything you can do to help. He's always game to try to help and explain stuff, so that's great. And then I'm also kind of curious how Tadas explains it to people who ask you too, Tadas, if you want to share any more details about that. Then that's something I'd be curious to hear. And of course, this is just an open discussion, so we can take it in any direction if you guys want to go in any other direction.
Yeah, well. Explain respect trees or firmament. I kind of I get bored if things are too easy to explain, so I start looking for where things don't make sense. And my joy is keep working that till it starts making sense. And usually 1 to 3 years, whatever I'm working on, everybody's just talking about it and it's so clear and nobody remembers that it was hard. And in fact, they don't remember even if they were against it. Oh, I was for that the whole time now that it's clear and I like it. So there's that progression from a complex or confusing to clarity is a really tough journey. If there's an interesting book called E = MC², I think, or it's a biography of E = MC², not Einstein. It's a biography of E = MC². And that's so clear. I mean, most people don't know what it means, but if you do, it's actually very simple, but that path to clarity is just very painful
Mm-hmm.
for somebody
Yes.
to write. He released it like in a one-page paper. Here's this thing people have been talking about forever. He goes, here's one-page paper. Oh, it can't be that simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's also familiarity plays a big role. Sometimes sometimes your concept is simple, but it takes people effort to understand it because it's new.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they put in the effort, we can get it.
Yeah,
But
and we all have the curse of knowledge, which is we're polluted by what we know. So either it prevents us from looking outside of that, or it prevents us from seeing that it's not clear. It's like when people write on a resume, supervisor at McDonald's, and they think that automatically means that, oh, that means you're good at leadership. No, you know what you did, but nobody else does. It's just like, oh, well, you were a supervisor at McDonald's. What does that mean? And they think the meaning is clear. So when we start working on things, and we all talk about it, internally, we just think the meaning of things are clear, and it's not. So that's called the curse of knowledge, is we assume everybody's going to get it. And I mean, I used to go to marketing meetings where coaches, oh, this is funny. Everybody's going to love that. Yeah, no one's going to laugh at that. Why? Because they don't have the context. No, really, they like it. We need to say this. No, you don't need to say that. But everybody, no, that's not how people think.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we'd all think if we were in that and working on it daily basis. If you're in the club, yes, that's exactly. But we forget that outside the club, the stuff isn't clear. And that's one of the reasons I run it through ChatGPT, because it can play somebody who is tech adverse, or somebody that doesn't like games, or somebody who's worried, and it's good at coming up with those and analyzing it from different areas.
Mhm.
Yep. It brings up some interesting ideas about memes and memetics and learning in general. And it also reminds me of an idea that I had a while ago about creating different websites for different audiences. Like, for example, creating a fractal launcher for, say, musicians who want to, and that's like more music oriented, and it speaks specifically to musicians and how it can help, coordinate a band or coordinate people who follow the band. And then maybe a different kind of website for researchers or medical professionals or something like that, because fractals can be used by anybody, fractal decision-making processes. So that's perhaps something that we can also automate with AI these days too, where we can maybe, I don't know if it's necessary, because maybe just having one cohesive brand might be more useful in some ways, or maybe just focusing on a specific niche, like you're focusing on
when
nonprofits.
back in the marketing days, we had very sophisticated software, and we would have a huge website with different pages, but you didn't have access all the pages. It depends on what you did. So if you did this, it would now lead you over here. If you did that, so what are you attracted to? Videos, text, explanations. So when you look at how people did, we would look at where they went, and then their next journey would be based on that.
Mm-hmm.
So we would actually have tons of different paths built in, but you only saw the path. And a lot of people I know were working on websites that adapted per person to person. This was some of my marketing research colleagues, as they would be experimenting with quickly finding out what the person, and essentially customizing a website to them. So we kind of figured out the buckets ahead of time and had a way to do multiple paths. They were actually working on, we will build this website as you go. We will adapt the website based on you.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, interesting ideas. And I think, we have the Eden Fractal website, and that needs a lot of improvements. That's something I've been planning to do. And I spoke with Timothy a couple times over the past months, and he gave me a lot of good feedback for that. And there's a lot of improvements I'm planning to make. And then there's also other websites that are communicating fractal governance and fractals in different ways. And so these can be
and remember,
valuable lessons.
We'll look at your website too and have it look at it different customers.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
you could set up AI agents both to create the websites and then kind of like critique them from different standpoints as well. And I've been looking a lot into AI automations in general. You can have, it might be kind of similar to what you're doing, Eric. I'm also curious to learn more about exactly what you're doing with your team and council of AI agents. But I've been learning from a lot of people who are setting up teams and councils of AI agents like to work overnight and like kind of build apps. They call it, I think, maybe dark factory or something, where just like there's no human really doing anything other than just like setting it up and then maybe giving some general direction. But then like the AI, there'll be one AI agent who's just like researching opportunities, and then another one actually is just like focused on building, and then another one that just critiques the one who's building and says do it better, and all this stuff. So
actually, I have 3 layers. So the first layer is the strategic layer, which I call my strategic dashboard. That has things like projects, status, priorities, partner maps for me, volunteer maps, timelines. And that's the thing that keeps beating me up, because it's really about human clarity. That's what I'm going for. Clear all this stuff is, how it fits together. The second layer is a document or knowledge layer. That's where you get summaries, notes, agreements, templates. And that gets stored, like for you would be Notion would be a great place to do that. The third layer is the layer I'm finding most interesting right now, which is the transactional layer. That does things like contacts, pipelines, tags, automations, funnels, snapshots. And the reason I'm using ChatGPT is because if I use the Atlas browser, I can log on to Go High Level. I design it in the strategic dashboard, the whole thing, funnels, automations, flows, and then it will actually build it in Go High Level in front of me. It's freaky. So most people don't know how to build that backend. So that means you've got systems to send people emails, to keep up with them, if they do this, to automatically do that. It's that operational tracking piece. So that's kind of what I'm experimenting with is strategic dashboard kind of is like your clarity partner that organizes things and throws your thoughts back to you and documents that. The knowledge layer is just like your second brain. I don't want to remember all that stuff. Put it in a spreadsheet, a Word document, a picture, put it in there and make sure I can find it, because people spend as much as a day, a week in traditional jobs looking for things that they already have. Oh, I know I put that somewhere. Where is it? So, as long as it can index that stuff, and it actually comes up with a master index, it can do that document or knowledge layer, what I call the second brain. And then the transactional thing is what I'm most excited about.
Okay. Go ahead. You gonna say something?
So kind of when you were talking about training,
Mm-hmm.
so we're looking at a unique training. In fact, I've got a meeting on it today. And so for me, 2026 is all about what I call batteries included. Like, I don't want to do anything unless an outcome is included in that package. It doesn't mean that teaching somebody to do a marketing plan is bad. It just means when they have a marketing plan, that doesn't mean you receive a result of getting a marketing plan, but not actually causing an impact. So because business is kind of like targeted, I go, okay, you can train the shooter, but they don't have the gun. You can give them a gun, but they don't have the bullets. In this case, the bullets would be content. So we train them, get the strategy, we deliver the gun. That's why I'm experimenting with this, building this automatically from AI into an automation system in the background, and then creating content for them that they can put in, and then giving them a 90-day path to basically shoot that gun, so to speak, and get impact, whatever that is, whether it's I want to drive people to my website, or I want build my contact list, or whatever it is. So that's what we're experimenting, is a 90-day cohort where every week we work on the strategy, the trainer, and then build a tool they need on the back end at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Did I explain that okay?
I think so. I mean, I understood most of it. Obviously, Tadas or Zaal, feel free to jump in if you have questions about that in particular. I have, but yeah, I appreciate you explaining, and it makes sense to me, generally speaking.
But that's what I'm trying to. The only reason I brought that up is that's what I'm trying to work on a fractal. I'm not trying to just give them something. I'm trying to give them an impact and figure out how to do that, and then how to roll that into bigger and better impacts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thanks for bringing it up, and thanks for working on all that. That's all great to hear about your progress, and aligns with some of the things I've been thinking about as well. With 2026, it's like a new time with all these AI tools. We can do a lot more that wasn't possible back in the old days of 2025. Two thoughts I have on my mind is one, just a general question for Eric, but also for Tadas or Zaal too. I'm curious because Eric, you've been using ChatGPT. I've heard that the new ChatGPT Codex app is very good for development, and I know you've been developing the app, so I'm curious if you tried that. I watched a video about it, and it's got quite a good like agentic GUI from what I understand. And if you haven't yet tried it, you might be interested. And then two, I know that also Zaal had written that he was up to share his updates with the Discord bot at some point. I think he said during the second half of the call. And I want to just give a general logistical kind of time check because we're about 40 minutes into the first hour. We have 2 hours total scheduled for like on the schedule where we could discuss today, so we could have a longer session for another hour and 20 minutes, but we also could wrap it up sooner if we want to as well. So I just want to throw that out there. And then I wasn't sure exactly what Zaal meant by the second half of the event when he was going to be ready to talk about his Discord bots. So I guess just let us know whatever is all you'd like to share that if you want to share it. And next, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, or if you want to wait till after the top of the hour or whenever is best for you. So, yeah, curious to hear about your updates as well.
What's the question?
The question was, it's also 20 minutes. The question was just about the ChatGPT Codex app. So about 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, ChatGPT released a Codex app, which is separate from the ChatGPT app, and it's also separate from, they also have a Codex CLI, command line interface. But they built an app that's like a pretty, from what I understand, like a pretty intuitive and user-friendly app. We don't need to have too much programming experience. But basically, it's somewhat similar to Conductor.build. Have you heard of that? It's like a agent orchestration development app that works in a nice-looking, graphical user interface, and you can like start up projects on the left side, and then just ask AI agents like by talking to them and say like, hey, build this feature and build that feature, and you can have several agents running in parallel to build different features of the app. And I've watched a couple videos about it, and I've heard very strong reviews, like very positive reviews about it being a very helpful tool for development. So yeah, I just figured I'd ask since you were using.
Well,
ChatGPT.
Of course, a lot of people are using Claude, and I'm using Base 44, which does exactly what you say.
Base 44? I think I've heard of it, but I don't know it too much though.
Yeah, but when I use Base 44, I actually use ChatGPT to design the prompt. So I design the app using my strategic layer. So I come up with it, then I have people beat up the idea of the app. So I have those boards say, well, what about this and that? And well, this doesn't strong, and how do you do that? So at the very end, I say, okay, go with that and write me a prompt to put in Base 44. But you could use Claude or you could use the Codex. And then I take that and I paste it in Base 44 and it writes the app. And then I test the app and make changes. And sometimes I consult back to ChatGPT. It doesn't have to be ChatGPT. It's just when I started experimenting with all this stuff, you had to have cross-conversation memory. Or else, if it doesn't remember who you are or what you're doing, what your projects are, it doesn't help. And at that time, ChatGPT was the only one that has it. Now a lot of them have it, so you don't need to just use ChatGPT. The reason I stay with ChatGPT is, one, I'm used to it, but two, is they came out with the Epic browser, which allows me to log on to go high level and have it build stuff for me. And I don't know how else to do that. I assume in the future it won't matter. It'll just upload code into GitHub. Anything can run it. I just don't think it's going to matter so much. But that's why I'm using ChatGPT, is because it was the first one that had that. Now it has the ability to build that stuff. But my friends I'm working with they are actually using AIs that move and use a bunch of stuff. They're doing crazy stuff, especially with agentic. I mean, really crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one thing we're doing,
like what Tadas is doing
in this, we're doing this Career Catalyst Collaborative, and its job is to ensure that students get paid for their passion by the time they graduate, while having schools be able to focus on jobs instead of degrees. Do degrees, but focus on jobs, and have businesses focus on getting the ideal graduate employee, new graduate employee. And we're building an Ikigai guide to help them, which helps. An Ikigai, if you don't know, is a Japanese philosophy that says, look, this is your life. They don't use words for retirement, because you never retire from life. So it says the whole thing is, what are you passionate about? What can you get paid for? What does the world need? What are you good at? So it's balancing those things. So as we take them through this journey, here's this agent that does that. So my friend is building that.
Okay, interesting. Made me think of how Eden Fractal can help people achieve their Ikigai.
Believe me, we're talking about that. We're talking about, as we set up these students in this process, how can we use fractal governance in there? So I'm trying to say, where else can I stick this in life? I'm focusing on this thing because my doctorate, but we have bigger plans. In fact, I talked to a woman yesterday who's coming up with a finance app that builds groups to basically either pay off your bills or invest together. And so I gave that quick spiel about what we can do with fractals, and I said that you could use that in your app because you're trying to build community. And she was like, oh my God, I gotta see this. So now she wants to go test the app.
Okay, very nice. Yeah, going back to the conversation we had before about how it's difficult to explain what we're doing in many cases. It's so many new ideas. On the other hand, that people do love it in a lot of cases. Like once people get it, and sometimes it comes quickly. Just to throw that in there, because I think we've made a lot of progress in getting better at it over the past 5 years or so, and there is a lot of positive reception to it. So I'll just throw that in there as well, and I think we're on a good path to make it easy for everybody to understand.
That's usually not the problem. There's a lot of people that have a great company that deliver. It's that attraction, enrollment, and the initial delivery. That's the key, is how do you get people to say, oh, that sounds good, to I want to do it, to doing it and having that initial experience really good. But by far, to me, the hardest part is the first two, attraction. Is hard when you're doing something that causes people either to think or act differently.
Which I suppose goes into some of the stuff that we had on the agenda as well, and some of the stuff we worked on, just like building the tools and the infrastructure that are ready for when people want to do it, so that it's easy for people to pick it up and go with it, which we're still working on here at Eden Fractal as well. So I don't know if I got that totally right. Maybe I was wrong about that, because I got a bit distracted because I started thinking about what we were talking about last week while you're talking. So feel free to let me know if I was incorrect when I was saying that lead in. I thought it was a proper segue, but then afterwards I was like, I don't know if that actually led in there. But yeah, I think that's also a good point in general, that that in addition to explaining it, having that easy pathway for people to adopt fractal governance is something that we're still working on and making a lot of progress this year too. That also the AI can also help with a lot, as we were talking about in recent episodes where we talk about GitHub spec-driven development and so forth. All right, so what should we discuss then now? Should we, should we aim to, I know Zaal is going to be ready in like 10, 15 minutes to share his updates. Should we do a full 2-hour call like we have on the schedule? I mean, there's lots of things that we could discuss. And over the past couple of weeks, or past months, I have so many ideas and things to share, and there's a lot I could share, but it depends on what we want to get into. I'm sure that Tadas is the same too, and probably Zaal as well. But should we aim to achieve anything in specific during this meeting? I mean, we're having a nice kind of exploratory conversation about AI tools and updates from Eric and communication strategies and stuff. So it's been nice and it's been fascinating, and I've been learning. And so I'm grateful for the discussion so far, but I'm wondering if we should continue an open discussion, and we should just keep doing this for next hour, or if we should try to have any sort of specific target, if we should return to any of the items on the agenda that were proposed over the past weeks, or maybe bring up anything else. I mentioned about the Synchronous Respect Tree, so I could share some quick thoughts about that, if it'd be useful. Or, I don't know, Tadas, is there anything you want to achieve in this meeting, or anything that you want to share? We haven't heard all that much from you so far today.
I don't have much ready to share, but yeah, I'm eager to hear your updates about SRT. If you know.
Okay. So yeah, maybe I'll go ahead and do that now then. So I was aiming to have a document created by today, but I didn't quite do that. I'd worked with Claude just to give it my audio message as well as a transcript from last week, and then there's several different like documents I need to add to give it full context. But basically, from what I remember, the idea that I had last week was, I think it'd be useful to separate the Synchronous Respect Tree game into several different games, or several different processes or protocols in a way. And I was thinking, to me it seems like the topics still deserves to be like its own kind of different game, because we were talking about like how do we going back to last week's episode or last week's event, we were talking about like I showed the kind of quick database I put together in Notion, and we talked about you had put up potential improvements. I could pull it up to be useful, but just off the top of my head, like talked about potential improvements, like how do we keep score over time, and where do we store this score in Firmament we discussed, and maybe have a half-life or something like that. Like those are some ideas for improvement. And then we also talked about like what should be the contribution requests, like should they be general or should they be specific contribution requests, and you're kind of like, well, it's better to have more specific, and I'm like, yes, I agree, but also having more general contribution requests can be helpful. And what I thought is, like, one, I think just topics are different than contribution requests, because topics you kind of only want to propose those once a week, and you don't need like a half-life or like once a week or once every 2 weeks. You don't really need to have like it in the same kind of area where like it builds up over time. It's kind of like you want to just do topics fresh each time that you play the game. So I kind of see that different from the contribution request aspect, whereas contribution requests you do want to have it like build up over time, I suppose, to some extent, like how much respect each contribution request gets. And these are still kind of early ideas, so I'd just be curious to see what you think. But I think we're trying to achieve too much with contribution requests, like just as one thing, and we could kind of resolve the kind of conflict that we were seeing about whether it should be general or more specific by separating into different games or different processes. And the best way that I thought of doing that was about having a respect trees game for projects and a respect trees game for tasks, rather than contribution requests in general, because contribution requests are both like they can be both general things like projects or strategic goals, and they can also be specific tasks. Also, you mentioned something about how it could be like an issue tracker, like on GitHub. So I'm also open to that too, because I'm kind of just taking in like existing frames, and the projects and tasks is something I'm very familiar with Notion, and a lot of people are familiar with project and task managers, and GitHub uses issue trackers and discussions and stuff like that, and pull requests. So I think we could work with these existing things that work in people's minds already and work in our minds. And then if we were to have like a task tree and a project tree, and then we're able to propose projects and propose tasks. I also started thinking about like having it where I I don't know. There's a lot more. I did like a 2-hour recording about this, and I started thinking about like the metaphorical meaning about trees growing in the ground, and how you could have like projects being the trees, and then tasks being the branches in a way. And there's more to that, and maybe some more stuff that will reveal itself to me later. I also like subtasks. I mentioned the idea of prompt requests, which is an interesting idea that's been popularized by Peter Steinberger, the creator of OpenClaw, saying that prompt requests are better than pull requests in some way. If you just make a great prompt, then it brings the feature or app or page or whatever you want into existence. So that's kind of like a subtask or a task, and that's kind of more like a fine thing, like improve Fractalgram feature X or Y or Z or something like that. Whereas a project might be like improve Fractalgram. And then the things that I was proposing, create educational materials and create improve technical development for Eden Fractal and improve community engagement for Eden Fractal. I had like kind of general ones. Those are kind of more like strategic focus areas, I think. Not even, they could be ongoing projects, or they're kind of just like focus areas. And I thought like it might make sense to have it where like it requires less respect or less basically we have to develop a permission system for Eden Fractal, which gives people greater permissions if they have more respect and so forth. And like different tasks or different actions require greater thresholds of permissions. Like people like some big decisions should only be made by the Eden Plus Fractal Council, but the Eden Plus Fractal Council only has so much time to deliberate things, and so a lot of things should be just okay. You can propose this if you have 50 respect or something like that. And I see like things like creating a task request should be like cheaper or easier to do than creating a project request or creating like a strategic focus area requests. And I think the notion requests can also work separately from those as well, because that's kind of like a unique thing. I know we talked about this, so I know that's kind of a lot. Hopefully I didn't overwhelm you because you had your hand up for a while, but I wanted to kind of get out like some of the things that were occurring in my head as I was remembering that. I think that kind of like brought a nice kind of overview of some of the main points that came up with after last week's call.
I think cool Respect Trees app would achieve everything you well, maybe I didn't quote everything, but I think Synchronous Respect Trees app integrates solutions for all of that. Like permission system, anyone can create a project level node, but if we don't have much respect, it won't get much attention. It won't be prominent in the view. So it naturally integrates that. It's not a permission system, but it basically your power in the respect trees is constrained by the amount of respect you have. Regarding tasks versus projects, I would say I didn't think much about it, but my intent was with Synchronous Respect Trees version 1 was to use contribution requests more like tasks. Contribution request as could basically be prompt request. I think it at some point it will be the same thing. Like you could take. I think even you could take existing contribution requests and give them to an agent, and we would output something useful. But if you start separating projects from tasks, at some point, from my perspective, there is a whole hierarchy of thought, basically, where you go from the highest level goals or items or strategies to projects to down to tasks. And I think that's my idea with respect trees. Like basically, it doesn't matter how you name those nodes in the tree, but it's a hierarchy where you go from the most abstract goals down to the most concrete actions. I'm not sure if it's worth introducing another third type of game for projects instead of just aiming for a full respect tree solution, which would allow that full hierarchical thinking to be expressed.
Okay. Can you say the last sentence? You're not sure if it's worth introducing the projects instead of. I'm sorry. What else did you say? The full hierarchical thinking to be expressed there.
Yeah. Yes, you said that last sentence, I think.
Okay, and so your, I guess, conception of it would be to continue doing Synchronous Respect Trees V1 as you proposed it, and keep on doing contribution requests as they currently are, but just kind of focus contribution requests more on task requests kind of in a way, and then at some point in the future develop like the actual full Respect Trees app that kind of treats all nodes as equally and doesn't call in projects or tasks.
No, that's if I would be creating the next version of SRT, the only way I would add another like projects subgame. If I wouldn't add it, I would just create respect trees. But I'm open if you come up with a document that clearly defines the game like I did, I'm open to trying it some week. But well, depends on what you introduce. I don't know. Like one tip, I'm not sure if we want big changes right now. So yeah. Anyway, so I'm open to trying different versions, and I'm also trying to do it with projects. But if you change it too much between periods, then this task of building up reports, which basically aggregate all the data from different periods, this will become much harder because you have to integrate outputs of different games. So let's keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not in any rush to actually change it or like make any proposals. I'll try to draft these documents in the next week or so, and then I could share it with you when it's ready. But I'm more so trying to just create a vision of how this all interacts and works in the future, and what we're building and how we're going to build it and how we'll cooperate in the longer term. And yeah, to me, it seems like I see like the original Respect Trees vision. I was going back and I was just rereading that and looking at it, and over the past week, and I think I like it, and I love it. Although the idea of having like all nodes that are kind of nameless, I think it might be harder for people to grok than using established concepts like projects and tasks. And by using established concepts like projects and tasks, it's kind of like easier for people to just like understand it. It's also like I'm not sure what your current priorities and what your timelines are if you're planning to build the Respect Trees app at some point, because that might make, actually seeing what your vision is like, but actually being able to play around with it and stuff like that would change how I'm thinking about it, I'm sure. But to me, like I also started thinking, and so another point that I came up with after last week was, and something I'd asked in one of your other documents that you recently published about donation requests, and you saw how donation requests could be just basically contribution requests, and I think you provided good reasoning for that, and I wanted to reread that. But the thought that I had over the past week was that I think donation requests are just like a different animal in a way than like a regular contribution request. They could still be thought of as a contribution request in some way, but like they require a split contract to be like deployed, and they're asking for something.
No.
Okay, maybe you want to jump in.
Like, a contribution request is a more general case. It's the donation request is a more specific case of contribution request. So it's not like you have to deploy a split contract. It's up to you how to accept donation.
Okay, well, maybe I'm speaking off the top of my head, so I'm probably making mistakes in both my understanding of how you define it and also my memory of it. So it'd be good maybe if I do some more, thinking, and maybe I can reread your document and reread your comments, which I'm planning to do. And also, I still don't fully understand how you see donation requests working in action. Like I've read it, but I just don't have a deep understanding of it yet because I don't have it like easily memorized. I'm like somebody trying to understand fractal governance for after I heard about it for the fourth time or something like that. But the idea that I had was basically there could be donation requests that happen. Say a donation request just happen like say once a quarter or something like that, and then people decided to I don't know if it's even worth it. Maybe I should just write the document and have it because it was like so much better when I came up with it in my audio note like a week ago. And there's the idea that basically people could determine which trees and which branches to donate to, and that could be something that could be done like say once a quarter or something like that at one time, and people could determine like should we just donate according to all the project trees, and that'd be in relation to how much respect each project tree gets, or in relation to all the task trees, or epoch 1 participants or epoch 2 participants. And so there was kind of rich weaving of ideas in a way, with a lot of different components that I think it'd be best if I probably write that document, then I provide it to you that you can read it and then think about it, because it might differ significantly from how you're defining it and understanding it, but it also has some similarities, and it made a lot of sense when I said it. So I don't know if I should continue trying to remember it now, or if you want to continue talking with this. Or...
You could have a strategy session where you upload this stuff into ChatGPT, and what I do is when I get lots of people, I just hit when I talk about a subject, I just hit the mic button on ChatGPT and everybody talks, and then I just upload in there and it'll summarize that particular thing. But then when you ask it it'll ask you questions and do the same thing, hit the mic, answer. When everyone's done talking, I just upload it and it clarifies that and asks a different question. So it's pretty good at looking at these concepts and helping analyze it. What it really does is organize thoughts and then ask you questions, which I find really effective. So you essentially can create a board to help advise. But the biggest thing it does is just summarize everybody's thoughts and organize everybody's thoughts and figure out what the key questions are. It doesn't really do these things for you, but it helps you get there faster.
I think key thing in these kinds of discussions is like to agree with people on the scope. Like what scope are we solving problems for? Like for example, my contribution requests / donation requests idea takes into account like what we can do right now without too much effort and too much development. I'm sure like better system could be made, but yeah, sometimes that's why I don't even. I feel sometimes reluctant to talk big strategy because it's a rabbit hole. Because you can try to start designing ideal systems, which you won't be able to implement soon anyway, and then where do you start? And yeah, it's.
Well, the key is figuring out what you need clarity on. I guess that's the starting end point. I mean, the purpose of these is to help gain clarity by help synthesizing everybody's thoughts and asking questions to force you. So these things start with, and I actually write this, I need clarity on what to do this or on this decision or on this topic. So it's not design a whole system, start from scratch. It's what is this clarity discussion about? And that's the key thing, is defining the conversation is probably the most important thing. And sometimes I need clarity on what the discussion is about. I'll ask it. Trying to figure out what I should be asking here, what I should be, don't give me proposals. How about this? I say, no, that's not it.
Yeah, I think how those meetings could be valuable. Now, coming back to what Dan was talking about, two things. So one, regarding people not being clear about, regarding the system with clear projects versus tasks, regarding that kind of system being clear, in the original Respect Trees article, I had a tag item. So each node in Respect Tree would have a tag, which could be project, task, question, answer. So yeah, it could clarify that a bit. And then another thing, regarding my plans for this part of Eden Fractal, I think what we currently have is better. It is something with Synchronous Respect Trees. I think it helps us. It's kind of working. It can be improved, but right now I'm starting to focus on other parts that we need, and I hope to come back to Synchronous or to Respect Trees in general.
All right.
I think the idea of Respect Trees are brilliant. I'm just still wrestling with the clarity on, okay, so how does that fit in? I mean, implementation from the user point of view.
You mean how?
Making it easy to implement and understand for organizations after we test it.
Yeah, so a lot of software development teams, or actually I think all of them, have issue trackers, for example. Or even at the larger levels of organization, at the higher levels of organization, you have these project management items like Jira, for example. So I think for organizations which use Respect, Respect Trees could act as the replacement for those systems, basically. And it's not just an issue tracker in a sense, but it's also a means to democratically determine priority of issues. I'm not sure if it would replace those standard tools in all cases, but for the kind of organizations that fractals are, I think we could be useful.
Yeah, and you're kind of bringing up my point. Is for an organization that's used to thinking this way, how do we implement that for them, for they to say, oh, I see the advantage, I want to integrate it, I want to use it, because they're like, oh, we already have something, we do this.
Yeah, I have a very clear answer for that. So you don't even bring up Respect Trees until you have the organization implement some sort of respect core system. We can call it in a different ways, but until they have, so Respect Trees depend on respect primitive.
Right.
So first have them play respect game, have them distribute respect, and then only then ask that question about consider adding Respect Trees for them.
So, in implementing what we're doing the way I'm doing it, the first value is to volunteers. And then the organization gets the effects of doing something for the volunteers. So the organization can get measurable growth out of that.
Yeah.
But
So first of all, respect gain can bring organization all the benefits that you know about. And then if you add the respect trees after you have respect them, I think what you can get is help volunteers self-organize and also produce an output that is basically not dispersed set of opinions from volunteers, but basically output that is basically meaningful. Every opinion is weighted by respect score, so something that could be interpreted more easily about, say, what, for example, could be used to outputting, to consolidating some opinion from a set of volunteers about, and that organization can process more easily.
to me, the transition I'm looking for that to say, here's something that the organization says is for us directly, is to be able to capture the conversations, depersonalize that, and give them an understanding of their organization. So they know what the organization is passionate about, what people are doing, what they're thinking about, but not what Tadas or Eric is thinking about in general.
Yes.
Then I think moving into organization and decision making is illogical. Now we have these people who talk to each other, they know each other, they respect each other. It's like, well, okay, so how do you work together? And that's where you start ranking projects. And I think one of the biggest problems next is problem definition. If we're going to solve problems together, we have to correctly define the problems, and most organizations don't do that. Most organizations just pull a problem out of their back pocket and say, should we do this, yes or no?
Yes, and I think respect trees could be used to help with that. You could have basically nodes that ask a question, what are the biggest problems? And then people could propose answers to that. And the answers would not necessarily be different problems. It could be different formulations of the same problem. And people vote. And I'm not saying all the coordination is just through respect trees. It's just one of the tools, I would say. So people basically create nodes in respect trees. And then we discuss, maybe then synthesize stuff, and then come up with better nodes and iterate like that.
That's why I brought this up right then. That's the exact point I was making exactly as we move from just the people into decision making and then solution making. There may be a bridge to that. I'm proposing giving them a quick win by just giving them a report of their organization, because that's something that they get right away.
You mean using respect trees, or?
No, I'm saying before respect trees, just give them a report, basically knowledge learned from the fact that we're having the fractal meetings. Because we're all talking. So what if we take all that talk and turn that into, what the organization should know without singling out any individuals? If you depersonalize the information, the problem is most organizations don't have a clear view of what's even going on in the organization, because most people aren't talking. And this tends to pull out and create a safe environment where people actually discuss things that they might not even normally discuss. So if those issues are on the table and you have, an AI depersonalize that and organize that, then, and you do meetings, and then over time it's integrating all the fractal meetings, you're kind of getting a picture of what the organization, what people are doing, what they want to do, what they're concerned about, what they're thinking. I think that's be really valuable for organizations, is that middle ground to say, you delivered another value for this that we get. without having to think differently. Because the ultimate goal is to move them into the real super value, like you're talking about, that we can do. But that's tough to walk in and say, we'd like to get you using respect trees and creating your respect organization. That's a really tough thing. But if we can start folding that in, where they just are able to use it in ways that doesn't make them think or act more differently than we have to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Like we should not introduce respect trees right away to certain organizations. And also, it's interesting. I think respect trees can also help with creating that depersonalized report, because report about what the community thinks, because the report could just say like 80% of people prefer this path, 20% prefer this. So respect trees would produce that information, and it could sometimes be more meaningful because the respect course would weight every opinion.
Well, you're also getting into a really, oh, sorry.
Oh, nothing. I just I think this is a great discussion. But I also want to just note the comment that Zaal made too. That he says he doesn't have a lot of time. He'd love to quickly share some of the things he built this weekend. So perhaps it might be best, maybe Eric, if you want to just share any quick wrap up thoughts there, and then we can come back to the conversation afterwards. After Zaal shares his updates.
I do have a quick wrap up. What you're talking about is something of incredible value, because one of the number one problems that businesses are reporting to me when they make new hires is that the new hires' values and the organization's values are not in sync. Sometimes as little as 2% in the Venn diagram where they share the same values. And so understanding what the different values are and how they get together is a huge problem for businesses and new generations.
All right. Great point, Eric. Thanks. I can share some comments there. We can come back to that. Tadas giving a thumbs up. Maybe Zaal, if you want to go ahead and present what you worked on, the bot updates. I'll give you screen sharing permissions in case you don't have it already, and you can take it away, and then we can come back to the conversation about respect trees afterwards. And
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, so I played around with a bunch of upgrades that I've been putting off for 3+ months because I installed Claude Code this weekend. It definitely like made a productivity difference. I was at the hackathon at ETH Boulder this weekend, and there's a couple cool things that I would like to show, but maybe I'll show them next week because they're Fractal contributions. But specifically, there was a really cool AI knowledge graph. Basically, people were talking to a Telegram bot the whole weekend, and all of that knowledge was culminated together in a visual graph. So I'm actually working on forking that as one of my projects after I finished updating my Zao Fractal Discord bot. So I'm actually in the process of working on it right now and updating it right now to include some hats, trees, things, but the last instance is running. So one of the things I added in here was the ability to have wallet addresses stored so that either people could register them during the fractal, and it didn't need to, once someone had pasted it in once, it didn't need to be sent in again. So I've created the fractal in such a way that it does that. So now if I go to Zao Fractal and I start a fractal, I can type in a fractal group. So we'll do test 1 and group number. Actually, I'm going to do 1 test. So it actually shows up with the number first. And then I'm going to do 2 tests here. And once we start up our bot, just like in the past, it will make a fractal group with, oh, cool. It did join. Okay. So I've set it up so that it actually will ping in the Discord once the round is done, because I got that as on Monday as feedback, and it was really easy to implement. It was really quick. So that was pretty cool. So now the bot joins in the group once you start it. This is only going to be a 2-person one, of course, but let's say this continued on. The way it's set up now is that the wallet addresses are stored, and we immediately get a link to vote on the breakout room. So let me I don't think I'm sharing my whole screen. Let me just share my whole screen.
Yeah, right now we see Discord only.
So then it pops up here. It didn't do the group number correctly because I think it wasn't just a number. If we look back here, it does say group number 2 tests. So imagine if that just said 2, it would have automatically pulled that in here. And then you have our 2 things and we can immediately submit. And the way it's now set up as well is there's a general message that goes to everyone to vote as well, which is pretty cool. And I think there can be a lot of cool level ups here. That could happen. So yeah, I'm really excited. This like did not take a lot of time. I still need to test it out more, but yeah, Claude Code's pretty cracked on that front, and it was pretty cool to just like my understanding of the weekend is like everyone's not using AI enough, which is interesting. I feel like we've heard that a lot, but it's cool to see actual applications of things that have been done in the past that were improved significantly with using AI tools. So that was one of them. I'm actually adding in a way. So we just got recently an Artisan fund, which I would recommend, Dan, you apply to. Artisan works in the sense of crowdfunding, but they give additional funding as matching, kind of like Giveth. Let me share my screen again, actually, and I'll just quickly show this because I'm basically setting the reason why I'm talking about this is because I'm trying to set up a way for people to also vote. I'm trying to duplicate Snapshot in my Discord bot for actual governance, essentially. And one of the things we need to start governing on are the different curations in the submission for our Zao fund on Artisan. So all of these curations, I want to essentially be able to immediately pull them in. So I don't know how well this will work, but curate project name. So we'll do this first one, American season, and put that in. See what other parameters we have. Description. We'll add that in because they added stuff here. And again, I haven't tested this one out, but this is kind of like the idea behind what we're going to do. So this goes into the proposals tab. We can go over to the proposals tab and go into this specific proposal and vote yes, no, or abstain. So that's kind of like some of the upgrades that I've put in. I think that there's a lot of power with the tools that are here, especially like my whole shtick is like helping non-technical folks in this space. So I think there's so much power, I mean, with the tools that are ahead of us. So yeah, that's I think a decent amount of the demo. I'm always open for questions, but that's kind of like how I see the future of the Zao Fractal going, adding more automation into it, adding more places where I can step out of the loop. And then the next real goal is to have more than 1 week timing specifically to have our respect meetings. What's up, Tadas?
Yeah, so one note for meeting number, you probably had the same thing happen as for group number. So it probably
Oh, the meeting number, I understand it doesn't automatically pull that, right? Because that's on chain. So that's based on the tick. So that's the meeting number I think pulled in.
yeah.
Yeah, I have the meeting number here. So yeah, I understand that that's not going to show. That's more from my own going through the threads in the past and being able to pull up any history that I want.
Yeah. Although eventually I think even better design would be for maybe
It should automatically make the group number, to be honest with you, based on what week it is. But since I'm testing it out so much now, I'm making too many fractals for me to make that automatic. But I definitely think that like if we on Monday at 6 p.m. meet and we have 2 groups, then the next person to start a group will be group 3. Whether or not it's 2 groups at the same time asynchronously or another time. So whenever that vote is started, I think that group number should automatically come in. And that's one of the things I definitely want to add in.
okay. Yeah, and I have a question. I didn't exactly quote how are you storing, how are you getting the addresses initially? Do you?
People can do dash register. Sorry, I didn't show that command in specifically. It was above. So either I as the admin or people themselves. So I first looked up Onajibi's address. It said there wasn't a wallet found because it said Onaji when I first put it in, and it didn't grab that because I just put in a list of what I had off chain, but this wasn't exactly Onajibi and Onaji. So I registered him with the wallet that I have on his thing, and that's how his account was registered for this. But anyone can do dash register as well for themselves. And it should do ENSs as well.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it can over register. That's maybe something I should that the storing of the wallet addresses is something I might come back and reiterate because it works right now and that's what I want. But there's definitely like thought processes behind making that part better because I've just a very simple way of doing that. And it's just stored, I think, in the I don't know if it's stored in a database or it's stored in the GitHub, like as a file. I need to look into it a little bit, but again, like a lot of this was vibe coded, so like my thing now is just testing it and like having people play around with it.
Yeah, that's very cool. It has some of the features that I would want chatbot Fractalgram to
Yeah,
have.
I made a Telegram bot today too for OpenClaw, so it doesn't seem that difficult to potentially just have the same repo be able to use Discord and Telegram
Yeah.
depending on where people were, because I'm thinking eventually I'd like to start having Telegram calls. I would like to eventually have a fractal on every platform at different times, right? Like, so like on Mondays right now we have Discord that's pretty consistent. People know to come there. Maybe on Tuesdays I have a community that starts at 4 o'clock a call. Maybe I get, and they're never in my fractals, but they're super active in everything we do. Maybe I have Tuesday, we do a Telegram. Honestly, we could stay in their Telegram call and their Telegram chat already and just make another one. Or we could make a specific Zao Fractal Telegram chat that again does everything the same, but gives you another interface to do that same thing. So yeah, I'm excited, honestly. Like this week's been a crazy push and build week, and I think there's just so much possible at our fingertips now. That's all like now it's just like work needs to be done to push it out.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And one other thing I wanted to say. Anyway, Dan, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, thanks all for showing us and great work. I'm glad that you built all those features and seems excellent. And also, I'm happy that you're learning Claude Code. So, just one question I have is I was a little bit confused at the end when you were showing Artisan and you had the feature where you can vote in the poll. Does that, like, and you also mentioned something about Snapshot too, that I think you're trying to mirror Snapshot into Discord as
Is
well or something?
basically
Or
I'm giving the governance of our artisan fund curation to accept it to our DAO based on Zao Respect tokens.
okay, and so you have an
So
artisan fund that
yeah,
is okay, but that's not to raise funds for the Zao. It's to raise funds for all the community members of the Zao. Is that right?
vice versa. It's
Okay,
anyone can apply to it.
okay.
Anyone that they want, they can ask to be curated in it.
Mm-hmm.
That decision is on me to accept if that like is a worthy thing for it to be part of our fund.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to decentralize that decision to my DAO.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using this as consensus for the decision making.
Okay, and so you're the one who's executing the action to actually go into the artisan fund interface and say, yes, this piece of art is curated, but you're doing so based upon the community vote in Discord. Does the community vote in Discord?
That's the goal.
Okay, is that? I guess the goal is to weigh respect tokens in there too, as opposed to just one person, one vote. Do you have that working now, or?
Yeah. So it's based on respect tokens for sure.
Okay. And okay, and that's a nice feature too. And you have that built in right now already. Where like if I were to go vote,
I don't know.
I don't know,
I have to
100
test.
tokens or
I
whatever.
have to
Okay,
test the like voting
okay.
portion, but like it's supposed to be. So that's why I think I can get rid of snapshot
Mm-hmm.
as something that's needed to be used because in the
Hmm.
end of the day, all it's doing is pulling. I'm doing added old Zao respect and new Zao respect.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to like iterate on that at some point. That's like my next big thing. I'm probably gonna launch a new ERC20, redo my old respect token, and create it so that like when people give an intro and some of the other pieces to the puzzle can still be actively gained, not outside of the earning points in fractal respect. But that's a different conversation. But yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Yep, that answers it. There's one other question I have, but I can't remember right now. Tadas, Eric, any other questions you have about the Zao Discord bot, or Zaal, is there anything else you want to share about it?
That's cool.
No, I'm excited to keep iterating. I would like to, if I can get it ready for next week, I would like to start distributing out respect again for the Eden Fractal respect groups. I just like have been behind on that stuff. So.
Okay, well, yeah, that'd be lovely. Thanks, all. I also remembered two things I want to say. So one, congrats on the ORDAO integration too. That's great to see, and I think that'll make it a lot easier to use ORDAO now and have your communities benefit from the ZORDAO respect token, I think you call it. And then the second thing is, you mentioned in response to the DOS about where the EVM addresses are stored, and you have to figure out whether that's in like a GitHub repo as a file, or if there's some sort of database, like maybe a Supabase backend or something like that. Is that the same thing for the snapshot votes that you're planning to do, or rather the votes that people are voting? Like when people vote, and say if I vote and I have, I don't know, 62 respect or something like that, then does that just get stored in Discord, or does that get stored in the same place as the EVM accounts, basically?
It's going to pull it each time is the idea of what I want to do. So the wallet address gets stored with the Discord username is how I see it. And and then when they vote, it'll query both token amounts. And at that moment when they vote is the idea that I want to have that much respect go into that vote. So querying how much they have on the blockchain at the time of the vote.
Yep. And then where's that write to? Is that right to the same place as the EVM account, where it's either on GitHub or it's in some database that you're not sure of yet?
Yeah, exactly. So that's you're saying like where the current votes are at and like how many versus how many?
Yeah, if I voted and I have, I don't know, 10 respect from the original Zao and 20 respect from the new Zao tokens, then I have 30 and I vote today, then how do you see that? Like where do you see it? And then if Tadas says he has 50 total.
I'm probably going to just transfer it all into a database after. But I want that database to like maybe push to the GitHub to keep a history is kind of where I'm going to be at, just in case something happens with the database. But that's kind of what I see. But the same thing as wherever the wallet addresses are going to be stored.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, this is quite related, I think, to what we were discussing, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago with regards to Firmament, the idea that we could store addresses as well as other information that's relevant to a community. And our latest idea, which the one that Tadas came up with, which I think has a lot of merit to it, is just storing it in GitHub repositories. In some cases, it could also be useful to have stored on some sort of other specialized backend database, but a lot of stuff could just be stored in GitHub as well. And that's pretty related to the Firmament idea. I see you sharing your screen again, and you're now...
Yeah, so I added in a little intros thing as well.
Oh, cool.
So anyone could ask for an intro.
I wrote that like a year ago, didn't I? Or 2 years ago or something?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so many people have written intros in like a year and a half. So like I've always been... Okay, so this is the vision. So I'm going to open this. I don't think I have a site for you yet, so I need to make one. But the idea here is that anyone in the community on the leaderboard page, it has their total amount of respect. This needs to be a little more copyable. But the idea here is that you can go and see everyone from top to bottom of who's like most governance in this community. But then you can also click on their name and it would go to their profile. That's kind of where I see this. And the profile can consist of what people have said in their intro as their bio. Again, none of that has been included yet. But let's say Django, I could go in, see how many points he has, and then also learn a little bit more about him. Or if someone's talking for the first time, you don't know him, you can do dash intro to get to know them a little bit better. So just like these social sharing features, I'm actually really interested in Farcaster and what we can do to leverage over there. But just like small things like that make the accountability and the like enjoyment of wanting to come increase is kind of where I'm looking at. that part.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the direction that you're taking with this, and I've been thinking about similar things for a long time. And I love that you've also made like real progress on it too, having these things connect with the introductions and on the website and stuff like that. That's also related. I think that you wrote at some point how we could also discuss some of the things that we've been talking about in our recent meetings. Like I think last Friday we met. And I think we talked about at some point how like. So one of my visions with this kind of like contributor page and profile page, you can also have, eventually you could have like the recent contributions from each event, and you could have both summaries of that as well as video clips and stuff like that. And that's something that makes the community much more welcome to join.
My goal is to have it scrape what people talk about in the meeting, so we can actually like list out contributions so I can post about them. I definitely see a lot of value there, and I have for a long time. I just like, again, this is something that I've had on my list for 3 months. And then I installed Claude Code on Friday morning, and by within 24 hours, I was at a point like a big upgrade.
Yeah.
Most of the things I want, I'm like actually having it try and integrate my hats tree now as well. That's like the real next step, the level up. So and then basically my idea is for each project that I have on my hats tree, a defined chat that's token gated based on the hats. So.
Yep. And I think this provides a model for how all communities, or at least a lot of communities, can interact with it. Like I guess each community probably wanted to have their own.
The goal is to play around with all of the tools and tech here and have everyone in our community pick and choose what they like.
Yeah, gain feedback from community members, and then we can hear Eden Fractal take all the things that, like, all these lessons you're building and the feedback you received and things that work really well, and then make more open source software and specifications and so forth that can allow anybody to.
That was the other thing I really liked about ETH Boulder. There.
Recording in progress.
ETH Boulder gave the opportunity to.
The sound is a bit weird when you had your other Zaal join.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, it's better now. The other Zaal had some weird things going on with his audio.
Yeah, I need to pop off this computer and switch over to my phone. But
okay.
I was going to say the motto is Fork the Frontier. And Shaw from Eliza OS gave a talk, and it was very, very interesting. The biggest thing he said, the biggest takeaway I took out of the whole weekend was everyone should be working on their slop filter for themselves to create something that in the future gets them the algorithm they want. I really like that concept and that idea. And then the second thing he said was for open source, the wave is just going to be, he said but his claw bot going through other people's GitHub repos and stealing is the word he used, that code and vice versa, the other side, the bot doing that as well. So I think that's what really levels up the open source technology and like what we can all do together. So it's just really exciting, the concept of like pushing people to fork because it pushes against proprietary information, proprietary code. And I think that just leads to a better world because people can build on top of other people's ideas. And that's a lot better of a mechanism or a loop, flywheel, in my opinion, especially with where we're at with tech, where not everyone has access to all of it.
You're here.
I love everything you said, and especially about slop filter. Like this is basically one of my ideas with Respect Trees projects, both original as well as Synchronous Respect Trees. Didn't have this in mind originally, but I would think about it more and more. That is that respect is very useful primitive to help filter stuff and help. It's not just filter, but to actually evaluate and judge information.
Exactly. I plan to only, like the whole dead internet theory, for me, I plan to only ever talk to people without respect in the future, right? Like, that is where my mind is going, is like anyone that's like, and if not, like you can gain some, right? So like, and the base, like if you have very little, you're going to have to talk to the people that have a little bit more before you have to get up. Those are the filters, and literally we are building that. So that's why, like, when he said that, it hit me because I was like, this is exactly what, like, the future we've been building towards, I think. So.
I like the idea of summarizing when we vote, summarizing the accomplishments automatically in the voting list. I think is very cool. So we remember.
Yeah, that's going to be the next thing I do for sure, because one of the things I've been meaning to do is add an asynchronous, like, submission page, basically, because whether or not you're there, many people forget all of the things they did. So it's the same thing as noting things down, but instead of noting them down on your own notes, you could note them down in the general of the Discord and tag the bot and just be like, I am currently doing this. I have this space today. You can just recap every single day. And then after 7 days, you come to the meeting, you say dash recap, right? And then you can just read off of what you've done, and you can actually really show your contributions. I think that's the biggest challenge sometimes with these games is people can't actually capture all the contributions they've done. And like, honestly, the challenge is how do you do that in 3 minutes? Like that is a skill, in my opinion, and that's something that's like great. Like the skill of like explaining things in a concise manner, and communicating well, right? So I love all those things. Yeah, I'm excited for what there is to come.
Yep, I completely agree with that, and I think that using one tool can help with those kinds of contribution summaries. Like, for example, if you use Claude Code consistently, then it can help you organize your contributions as a result. I'm planning to start using OpenClaw, and I figure that can be a kind of central place to start working with a lot of the contributions. And it also reminds me that Tadas created a contributions list. Actually, Zaal had created or wanted to create a contributions channel back in the Artisan Fractal Discord, and we never had one. We use that sometimes, but never that much. But we now have a contributions list in the Eden Fractal Telegram chat, and Tadas shared a bunch of contributions with nice links and stuff like that. That's also something that that we can also automate too, which would be nice to automate. One of the things I've done research on this week is to have, and Zaal had mentioned earlier in the chat how he'd love to have an AI agent like in the chat, in the Zoom chat, where we can like ask questions to it. And I think we talked about that recently. There is the AI companion in Zoom that we could start using. And in addition, I started doing research into just in general having an AI agent that's just like listening in on the calls and transcribing what we talk about and stuff like that in real time. And I think that there's also opportunity for that kind of thing, so that even if people don't summarize their contributions in text beforehand, it can take it, like the AI agent can take it and based on what they said during the meeting and then put it in the contributions list and then allow people to access that more easily in the Eden Fractal Telegram group or whatever other kind of group they're in throughout the week. So that's just another interesting idea there that inspired. I see. Go ahead.
And I'm dragging everything I do into my strategic dashboard. Went talked to Dan, got this, had a follow-up meeting. Here's a summary of our meeting because, I had a meeting the other week and got in the car to leave after the meeting, and I just used the voice and ChatGPT to capture the meeting and write up a summary to send to everybody, just right there. So it knows that. I never thought about, hey, list the best 3-minute summary of my that. I mean, not only could you talk it, you could just copy and paste it. It'd be friggin' awesome.
All right, I agree.
Because that normalizes problems. Because right now, part of your respect is based on your ability to present, but that may help mitigate that if you've got something. Like you think of all the things you do. You're like me too. Nuts, just all over. Like we did this and that. Then I update the website.
You do spend time, Dan, on like sharing things that while they're awesome and you probably spent a lot of time on them, there might be other things that made more of a difference that you didn't get a chance to share because of that, right? I love that, Eric.
But I think the biggest thing it could do is say, here's what I did. Focus on impact. So it could help you take all those things and say, here's the impact that you had this week, and you could set the time, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever the group decides is your share time, and it could optimize that. I think that would take some of the inequity from the fact that people are just different in personality and time, because you have it, and then that's the summary of that 3 minutes. The key bullets would pop into when you're actually voting. Here's the impacts Zaal had. Here's the impacts Dan had. Here's the impacts Tadas had. Just real quick notes to remind everybody. That would be insanely cool.
It reminds me of when I was working on the applications for retro funding, and also some of the other applications I worked on over the years, where I had to curate data about like how many people are using this software, how many people watch this, how many people did that. So I think there's a lot of basically a lot of ways that we can upgrade our game in terms of both giving contributions, making it easier for everybody to give contributions that represent what they did fairly and well, and also sharing the impact that they had and how that can overall help to better demonstrate the total work of the Fractal community as well as each individual. And then when that's also attached with like those profiles that Zaal was talking about, then that provides like kind of like a LinkedIn kind of place where people can share, oh, you know, here's my profile in this Fractal community and I did all this great stuff and got all these, you know, this respect. And also people can see the contributions over time and see how people have contributed over time to earn more trust and respect and credibility and so forth.
But I think we can, at the larger scale, as this gets more integrated and used, we can actually talk about how the organization's changing and what it's doing over time, which is incredibly cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. We could share the story of Eden Fractal much better, and many other Fractal organizations over time. That also might be a good segue. It's like only 12 minutes to the end of the event, but one thing that we haven't yet discussed that's been on the agenda for the past month and a half or something has been Eden Fractal 2026 resolutions. I don't know if we want to discuss that at all, or if we want to give like quick answers to that, or if we want to just wrap it up early or continue these discussions. Or we didn't come back to the discussions about respect trees too. And Zaal, are you okay? Zaal, I hope you're okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
A meeting with 36 people so that we can do the second round of the Fractal.
Okay, it's a little difficult to hear you, but I think that I heard, yeah, you have some sounds going on there, but I think you heard you're in a meeting with 36 people to do the second round of the Fractal. Oh, that's maybe that's a New Year's resolution from Zaal that wants to get to the point where we have multiple rounds. Okay.
I was walking. 36 or more people in one Fractal, so that we can get a full group of level 2. Because I would also love to like stream that, or like everyone watch that. That's a part of the other 30 people, right? I don't know. We haven't really had a lot of those kind of meetings, so like I would love to. I think that's a good resolution and good goal for all of us, whether it be just here in the Eden Fractal meeting or Zao Fractal or vice versa. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking. One of my goals for 2026 is.
Yep. That'd be great. We haven't had those big ones since 2022. Eden Fractal's never been quite that big, but back in original Eden community, there was like hundreds of people, and Genesis Fractal had some 40 or 50 people days, I think, and those were very cool to have the that was pre-Zaal era, yeah, the PZ. So yeah, that's a great resolution to increase the amount of people joining and getting value from it, and potentially do multiple rounds too. We haven't really had. I was thinking yesterday, but we haven't even thought about that in a long time. Eric, Tadas, do you have any other maybe points to conclude it? Any last thoughts about the respect trees, or any New Year's resolutions you want to share, or anything else in your mind?
No, good. All good stuff from everybody as usual.
I agree.
I agree.
And Tasha, you were saying no, you don't have anything else to share?
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, I did in the background while you guys were talking about respect trees. I did just. I was just waiting on. I just added a couple documents and then generated my thoughts with respect trees. So I'll read this over and then try to organize it into more discrete documents, because it gave me like these 2 really long documents I need to read. And if you want to, I can share that with you so you can read these thoughts, because they're pretty well organized now. And there is a section about how to implement with existing tools. So I think that we could implement something like this potentially if it works out well. But yeah, I think it's best probably if I take some time to read it, and then I can come with a more clear proposal as well as a document that you can read over the coming weeks. I suppose, so yeah, should we just wrap it up now? Or, I mean...
Sure, I've got another very cool meeting to go to, but I actually have to physically get up and drive there. So, old-fashioned, people meeting.
Okay, well, sounds good. Enjoy talking with your people and drive safe. Thanks so much, Eric, for all you're doing, and looking forward to seeing you next time.
You too. Everybody here is all great stuff too.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll say, you guys are the best. Have a blast. Can't wait to chat next week with the heart. Very good. I agree. Yeah, I was also just going to say, there's a lot there's a lot of projects that we have ongoing between Respect Trees and Firmament, and we've also made topics, or not topics, but proposals, contribution requests with a nonprofit, which I've been working on a lot lately. And there's several other initiatives. So maybe my 2026 New Year's resolution is just to accomplish all that and to get it all built, and then have 36 people join and enjoy it. And I don't know, I can go into more detail maybe, but maybe I'll just leave it at that for now. But at some point it'd be great to talk more about those things. Like maybe I find myself like jumping between these projects. I'm like, one day I'm focusing on Firmament, and then one day I'm focusing on Respect Trees, and then one day I'm focusing on Fractalgram, and then one day I'm focusing on nonprofit, and then one day I'm focusing on this.
That is exactly why I have my unified strategy dashboard. That's exactly what it does. Is it'll tell you, no, you're not starting anyone. You're not reading. No, you're not starting another project. It says, don't do this, do that. And I ask it. Sometimes I'm having clarity on what I should be working on or how I balance the projects. And it asks me questions. It says, all right, well, maybe you should do that. So, it just keeps track of all the projects, where they're moving, where they are, where the goals are.
And that's all based in ChatGPT, right? That you're currently working?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I had to train it to know me and to do that. But after I trained it, it knows my project. It knows how to work. It knows when I get burned out. It knows when I get frustrated. So it helps line things up. It says, no, do a block of time. That it knows that I have to feel some progress too. Toward moving, not just checking off things on a list, but toward the goal. So yeah, I've trained it, and so I'll just say begin unified strategy check-in. It says, what are the 3 things most important for you today? And then it updates on all the projects. So it goes through all of it. It says, on this project, you're doing that, you're moving there, this project. So it kind of knows that and all the timelines, and it keeps track of all the people, contacts, follow-ups, statuses, pipelines in each of those.
Okay, well, very nice. I'm glad it's working out well for you. And yeah, I'll be creating such a dashboard system myself pretty soon. In the meantime, I'll jump around from inspiration to inspiration and catch up on reading all my documents. I probably have like 100 pages of documents with Claude that I have to read. Anyway, thanks so much, Eric, for sharing that. Thanks also, Zaal, for sharing all the great stuff you're building, and Tadas as well. Should we wrap it up? Or Tadas, do you have any last comments? You were inspired there for a second.
Yeah, just wanted to say, I'm very familiar with your situation. That's my situation with fractals. Ever since I started them, there is so much potential. And I think even before this AI revolution, I felt that it was getting more and more important. The systems to organize your focus, we're getting more and more important, and I think right now it's even more important. And hence, again, Respect Trees and systems like the ones Eric is using. I have my own system to organize and plan week by week. So I know something we can talk a lot about.
Yep, I agree. And one thing I'm very happy with is we've been circling around some certain ideas, and they're making a lot of progress lately. So I think that we're going to really make a lot of progress on these things. Like seeing what Zaal presented, he's already bringing a lot of these ideas I've had for years to life. And similarly with the apps we're developing and things we're building, I could see lots of progress coming and ways to do that a lot quicker with these agents now. And we'll get there faster if we go ahead and do what Zaal did, only talk with people who have respect. That's the key learning. Made me laugh. Okay. Zaal, if anyone wants to talk fractals in the live stream anytime, he's always getting to yap. Sounds good. Everybody stay focused. If we want, we can wrap it up now and say go Eden Fractal or go fractals in 3, 2, 1. If nobody has any further comments.
Let's go.
All right. Let's do it. 3, 2, 1. Go Eden Fractal! All right, thanks guys so much. Greatly appreciate it. And looking forward to seeing you all next week.